Hi, I'd like to talk to you about how to optimize your LinkedIn profile and a few other things that you can do to really make your LinkedIn presence work for you. This makes it easy for clients to find you in searches. It also means that when they land on your profile, they are captured, they're interested, they know what they're there for, that you've got to offer for them. So let's have a look at the 7 steps that will help you to do this. And there's a lot of tools in LinkedIn, even on the free account. So let's start with the obvious one, which is your profile. So in your profile, you've got a number of things you can do to really help people to engage with you. We start off with your audience. Now, you need to know who you're trying to reach. If you know that, it makes it an awful lot easier to create things that will connect with them. So the first thing I would say you should do, not on LinkedIn, but for your business, is to create an ideal client profile. Once you understand your client and you understand what they're looking for, what their problems are, how you can fix their problems, what keeps them awake at night, what they want life to be like, that it's not at the present moment, but you can help them arrive at that point. Those are the things that will help to ensure that your content is actually the right thing for that contact, for that potential. So let's also look at images. Now there's 2 images on your LinkedIn profile. There's your banner, your what they call the background, cover background, and there's your headshot. Now the headshot is something that a lot of people don't always understand. They just stick a picture up there. They maybe crop a bit out of the snap that they've had taken. I would say it's really worth investing in a professional headshot, because that means that people will be able to see that A, you're professional, and B, they get the right impression of you. Ideally for a headshot, and there's a difference between headshot and a portrait shot. A headshot means it's the equivalent of meeting somebody at a networking meeting face to face. So you need to make eye contact with the camera. So you look as though you're looking directly at the person concerned. You need to be smiling, ideally, not grinning like an idiot, but at least looking friendly and approachable, which is what you're aiming for. You want people to look at you and think, oh, I could talk to them. And that's the kind of approach you want. So I think there's some fantastic portraits out there with sort of sepia tones, moody looks, and all. They don't work as a headshot. They really don't. So get your headshot right. Your banner is an opportunity to present your business. So I'm not saying put an advert in it, but certainly you can include your logo, and you can maybe put some images that portray what you do a little bit or have a relevance to what you do. So don't just leave it blank, because it says you're not serious, you're not really bothered about it one way or the other. So that's the top bit, but there's a bit more to it. There's your headline. Your headline's the bit that sits under your name and defaults generally to your job title. I wouldn't do that. That's not a good idea at all. I would say to put something in it that tells people what you can do for them. So it might be helping people to find effective team members if you're in recruitment. It might be helping people to make an impact in print if you're a copywriter. Those kinds of things will help you to get that person's attention that's the right person, so they recognize the outcome they are looking for, and then they will read more of your profile. I also tend to include a couple of your core skills. So mine are copywriting, book editing, so you would put those in as well. I also use stars or diamonds to draw the eye. I call them eye hooks. I'm not the only one that calls them that, but it's a good description. And I put those in between the phrases. So the first phrase would have one at the beginning, one at the end. Each skill would have one either side of it, so it separates them out, but it just makes people pay attention rather than it just being a line of text. I think you have 220 characters to play with, so you've got plenty of room for being creative. But don't make it too long. Don't make it 220 characters just because that's what you've got. Try and be as succinct as possible. The next thing to look at is your About section, and your About section is a marketing tool, so don't mistake it for a CV. It isn't. I would recommend you write it in the first person, simply because it sounds like you're talking to somebody, whereas if you're writing it in the third person, it sounds like someone else has written it, and it sounds quite pompous. And I use headlines within that. I think you have something in excess of 2,000 characters to play with, so you've got quite a bit of text to put in there. I would say an A4 page is probably about the right amount, but maybe a bit less than that. But I put a headline. Now, you cannot format text in the LinkedIn profile About section. It's all the size it is, the font it is. You can't make it italic, you can't make it bold. You can put in bullet points, so that's a useful way to highlight things. I tend to write it in about 3 sections with a headline for each section, and the way that I make my headlines stand out, we're back to the diamonds again at the front and the end of the headline, but I do write them in uppercase. I don't like uppercase headlines, but it's the only way to make them stand out, because people read lowercase text, sentence case text much easier than they read all blocks capitals. However, as it's just a few words, it's usually gettable or weighable with. That's not English, but you know what I mean. So I would put your headline to attract attention at the top, because that's the little bit that will show when people see your About section. They only see the first line or so. Then write a benefit-driven piece of information around that headline for your content, and then I would put another headline with a different focus on something that you do, and write some more benefit-driven content. What happened? The reason for this having more than one headline is simply that if people are interested to open it, so they look at the first bit, if they start reading, they go, "No, this one wasn't quite what I was looking for." If there's no further headlines, it's just more and more text, they're not going to continue to read all the way down. If they see a headline that has a different message, and obviously an allied message, because you're not going to suddenly change from one industry to another, but it allows them to go, "Oh, that sounds interesting," and they re-engage with the copy a bit further down. And you've got, you know, a couple of bites of doing that. So it's a good technique to use. And always put however you want them to contact you, put it in the text. Don't expect them and make them work by going to find your contact details and digging out the email address and all the rest of it. If you want them to call you, put a phone number. If you want them to email you, put your email address in the text. And the other thing that is good for your profile are recommendations. Skills are fine, that's everybody can say whatever they want about skills, but recommendations are somebody else saying how good you are. If you have clients on LinkedIn, connect with them. If you have former clients on LinkedIn, connect with them. Anybody who's experienced your work or seen you present or whatever it is that you've made an impact, get them to recommend you on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has a facility to do this. You can go to your recommendation section or to somebody else's and just make a recommendation or ask for a recommendation. So it's worth doing that, because it's not because people don't want to recommend you, they just forget. They don't do it. If they're asked, most people will do it. Don't ask anybody who you haven't worked with, because if they don't know you, whatever they say in a recommendation will come out as inauthentic, but also may sound a bit bland and not it's almost like, you know, asking somebody for a testimonial and they didn't like it and they say, I saw them speak. That was it. So obviously you want recommendations from people you know are going to give you a decent recommendation. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing on my list. This is the second thing, and this is the connections. So yes, connect with clients, I just said that, but also connect with people who match your ideal client profiles. So you can search on LinkedIn and you can search for people, you can search for jobs, you can search for companies, you can search for all kinds of things. And here's a little tip. In the search box at the top of the page, don't write anything, just click the magnifying glass and it'll take you to the page where all the different things you can search on exist, so you can refine your search in certain areas. So you can search on job titles and things like that. The other thing to connect with are the people who are influencers. Now, I follow people who are leaders in my industry, but I also follow some influencers in the industries of the people who are my ideal clients. So that's something to think about, because if you're seen commenting on what they say, then their followers will notice you. Obviously you have to make the effort to do the writing, but you can't, you know, you can't expect people to sort of have clairvoyancy and know that you're following that person, because they're not going to go and look. So you need to be visible, but nevertheless they're the good people to connect with, so that you're on their connections list and followers list. Number 3, you cannot have a conversation with an organisation. So whilst people do follow company pages on LinkedIn, primarily most people connect with individuals, so they connect with personal profiles. And my advice would be, yes, connect with people, but don't just connect and then tick, I'm connected and now I've got, you know, 43,000 connections on LinkedIn. Who cares? It's not about numbers, it's about relationships. So hold the conversation, start the ball rolling. You know, most people are very, very busy, but if you actually send them a nice message when you've connected with them to say, you know, thanks for accepting my connection request. I write things like, I think the benefits are in having a conversation. If you'd like to have a chat, let me know. Meanwhile, if there's anything I could do for you, just give me a shout. I keep it fairly informal. It is, don't be too pompous. Don't make it sound like a bot's written it, or ChatGPT. It needs to sound like you. It needs to be short. But then I have a system. That means I follow up after a month and I send them an invitation to a virtual meeting link for a calendar, so they can book themselves in. I send them a link to some useful information on my website that they might find interesting. I send then, you know, month by month. So it's just keeping the ball going, really. And people who respond, then you end up having conversations with, you get to know people, and you may not end up being each other's client, but you may end up being each other's advocates and recommending people to each other. So there is not just one reason to have a conversation. And you meet suppliers for yourself as well as potential clients. So it's all useful to do, but obviously you have to be time aware and make sure that you maybe have a specific day or time that you do those kind of meetings. Get involved. Now, people say, oh, I've been on LinkedIn for ages and I'm nobody, you know, no one ever talks to me. And that's probably because you're not visible. And the way to get visible is to actually spend 5 minutes after you do your email first thing in the morning. And I say, you know, attach a new habit to an old one. And there you go. Most people do email first thing in the morning. Go on LinkedIn home feed, look at what's on there, read some bits, like things, comment, share stuff. It's really useful to be able to do that, and people will notice you. You'll also find people respond to you as well. So you'll get answers to your, if you set your LinkedIn email notifications up properly, when somebody responds to a comment, make sure that you get an email so you don't miss it. You don't have to go and look for your notifications. I've got my LinkedIn set up, so if somebody messages me or somebody comments on one of my posts or replies to a comment I've made on their posts, I get an email. I don't get emails for everything else. I don't necessarily want to know when anybody's birthday is because LinkedIn's a professional platform, but I do know people who use that as a means of reminding people they're there, and that's fine. It's a personal thing. So congratulations on work anniversaries and birthdays and things like that. It's up to you. It's not something I do, but that's my personal choice. I don't think it's a bad thing to do. If you have the time to do that, great, go for it, because it is a way of reconnecting with people. If you don't ever comment and you don't ever like a post, then basically people don't know you're there. They don't know you're reading their posts, other than they get a number of impressions, but they don't know who those people are. So it's definitely worth making your presence felt. And I believe that if you comment first and then like, LinkedIn takes more notice. Don't ask me why that is, but that's the way their system is set up. The other thing to do is to find your tribes, because just publishing posts on the main feed, which you should do, is only part of the equation. If you know your ideal client profile, I know I keep banging on about it, but it's so important. If you go to the groups page, the search page that I was talking about before, and search on groups for your ideal clients, what sort of groups do they hang out in? Now, it's no good joining their industry bodies. So if you're looking for accountants, trying to join the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants won't work, because A, if you're not qualified, they won't let you in, and B, they're not talking about the kind of stuff that you would be able to contribute to, let alone be interested in contributing to in those groups. However, there are other groups that they are in that are more business related, and where they're looking at more general business help or a particular kind of business help. And those are the groups that you need to be looking at. And when you go and get a list of groups, you'll see it tells you how many members there are. It tells you how active they are, when the last posts were. Those are the things to pay attention for. It's no good joining a group that has 3 people in it, because spending your time on it isn't going to be cost effective and time effective. However, if you got 2 groups and one's got 26,000 members and one's got 500 members, but the 26,000 members one only has 1 post a month and the 500 one has 6 posts a day, then it's worth going in the smaller groups, simply because the people in there are active, and you want people who are active. Very big groups often just basically stultify. They get to the point where people just aren't contributing because there's just too much going on, and people fall out, and then the group becomes a sort of bit of a dead end. However, it's worth going and having a look, and don't join everything. Realistically, you're only going to be able to manage effectively up to about half a dozen groups, because you won't have the time to spend in them unless you've got nothing else to do, which doesn't mean that you've got a good business. And it is a case of you have to put time aside to go maybe 15 minutes twice a week to go in the groups and see what people are talking about and contribute. Not sell your stuff because you'll get kicked out of the group, but to be helpful, because the more helpful you are, the more people see you as an expert, as a specialist, somebody who gives good advice, the better chance there are that A, they want to connect with you, and B, they may want to actually do business with you. So that's, one of the things to consider. Pick out 4 or 5 groups that you think these are my tribe. They're the people who will find what I do useful, and I can help them. And those are the groups you need to be in. Okay, so we've done groups. Next is writing. As I said, you need to write content, so to put content up there. And LinkedIn lends itself to slightly longer posts, so you can put your thoughts on there and your opinions on things. I do think that images are important because people are attracted by images, so make sure that your post has a relevant image to go with the content, and hopefully one that intrigues people enough to want to open the read more button. Also short videos, not videos this long, but 1-2 minutes, great stuff. If you're good on camera and you can just talk to your phone and upload it, that's a great way to do it. Or if you want to do it in a more formal environment in a studio, that's another good way of doing it. But don't forget that you are able to post articles on LinkedIn, and unlike posts and other parts of LinkedIn, the area that you post the articles you can format, so you can put in subheadings and you can lay it out differently and so on. So where it goes to on the home page, you can choose whether to put an ordinary post or to post an article, or you can do it from your profile and you can post an article from your profile. I use blogs that I've got on my website, and I then leave them on the website for a week, and then I post the actual article, not just the link, but the article onto LinkedIn, so it appears there as well. And obviously that will turn up in your feed, it'll turn up in your featured articles in your profile as well. So it's good to have content on LinkedIn as well as other places. And finally, this is something a lot of people don't do, and if you know the value of PR, this may appeal to you, because people pay a lot of money to PR agencies to get them into the public eye. So they have to have the media connections to do that, and that's why you pay an agency to do it, because most people don't have that. However, on LinkedIn, there are loads of editors, journalists, freelancers, people who may well be interested in what you've got to say. So once you've got a few articles up, and I would say don't try doing this until you've got some articles on your profile, because otherwise you're not walking the talk. So you have to have some demonstration of your writing and your writing style for them to look at, because they will check it out. But have a search on editors, have a search on the publications you'd like to appear in, and see who works for those publications. If they've got a company page, you can always click on people and go and look to see who the people are that work for that organisation. Check out freelance journalists, because they work for lots of different publications. So make connections with those people, and don't just say, oh, go and look at my articles, would you like to publish them? Because they won't publish something already published. They want unique content. But it gives them an idea if they're looking and you're talking to them about, I'm really interested in your publication, or in certain publications I believe you've worked with. Can you give me a bit of advice? And ask for help. You'll want to know, A, if the publication takes unsolicited articles, or whether they only do commissioned stuff. What you would need to do to be considered for a commissioned article, if that's the case. What kind of article length are they looking for? You need to go and read the publications you want to appear in, because otherwise your style may not fit theirs, and you might need to demonstrate that you can. So there's a whole lot of potential on there, and it's sort of a backdoor in, because if you just ring a publication and ask to speak to an editor, the chances are you won't get to speak to them straight away, because they've got really good guard dogs. But in LinkedIn, you can connect with individuals and talk to them. And some of them will answer you, some of them may not, but that's okay. It's, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So here's the checklist. These are the things you need to do, the 7 steps to make LinkedIn really work well for you. 1 is optimize your profile. 2 is search for the right connections. 3 is have conversations. 4 is get involved. 5 is find your tribes. 6 is publish great content. And 7 is track down useful media connections. So that's my 10 penneth for now, and hopefully that will be useful. Get in touch if you'd like to know a bit more about what we do. We help people with their reputation, authority, visibility, and presenting their expertise, and polish their reputations to a high gloss. Great talking to you. Bye.